Welcome back to the Special Education Insights podcast. Today, we get the opportunity to spend time with the Director of Special Education. His name is Patrick Becker, and he's focused on something really interesting. What happens after students leave schools? He has a background spanning not just teaching, but also school leadership and at the district level of special education. And his perspective on preparing students, not just for academic success, but also real life is incredibly intriguing to me. So that is a number one reason as to why we're having him be here on our podcast. Through initiatives like Workforce, Pathways, and Transitioning Reprogramming, his work centers on helping students build independence, develop job skills, and move confidently into adulthood, which is absolutely important. Hi, Patrick. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So I noticed something right in your email signature, actually, as you had replied back to our outreach, and it had said, when you know your why, or when you know why you do what you do, even the toughest days become easier. What is your why when it comes to special education?
This is my 20th year in education. I've been in special education every year. I was a teacher. I worked at some day programs when I was trying to get my degree. So I was a teacher and I taught every subject, from math to English to Special Olympics, like unified sports. So I just have a lot of experience in special education, and seems like it's just getting tougher every year for our staff, right? Our paras, our OT, PT, teachers, it's just a lot on their plates. Very stressful for them. It's a lot of paperwork. And then we're dealing with students that just need a lot of support. So I know it's just every day it's tough for some of our staff to go there every single day, and just feel the stress of, not only trying to, educate these students, but trying to really get them prepared for life after high school, which is because we are a high school only district. So I know it's tough on them, and we put I put a lot of pressure on them of making sure we're doing the right things for the kids and making sure that we're giving the best education. And so it's tough. And when getting education, teachers and staff don't always get paid probably what they're worth. So there's got to be a reason why they're doing what we do. And that's just because we want to really make an impact on kids. And so I really try to stress to my staff is, we're here for a reason. We're here for the kids. We're here for the community. We're here for the parents, because we are working for students that just don't get probably the support they need all the time. So, we got to find our why. And I have a great department, great people that work with me, alongside of me. And we all are there for one reason, as just to support those kids. No matter what happens, no matter how bad our days are, no matter how rough we have it, we know we're probably working with kids that have a lot much tougher than we do. And that's why you got to understand why we're doing what we do. It's because of those kids, the families, the communities. And when you have those tough days, just think back, this is why I'm doing it, because I can see the smile on their faces. I can see them graduate. I can see them succeed once they leave us. And that's, I try to make them understand that that's why we're doing it. And I just always kind of stuck to that mantra.
That is such a beautiful mantra and such a great thing to remember, especially on really tough days where people can just get so bogged down with stress. Was there somebody who was really inspirational to you, or a teacher that was really inspiring to you that really ignited this in you?
Yeah, when I was in high school, I didn't know I graduated in 1996. I didn't really know what special education was back then. But I had teachers, I had I played football in high school, and I had coaches that taught special education, and they'd always talk about how much they liked teaching it, and they would always have fun. It's just probably just a group of those coaches that I hung around with when I was playing football, and they're just kind of mentoring me. My father was in the police force, and he always stressed helping the community, always helping people, making sure that when he was doing his job, he wanted to support as many people as he can, especially those that maybe didn't have what we had growing up. I had two parents that worked, that provided everything I had. I never went hungry. I never went without food. I never went without clothes. But they always stress that, we're one of the lucky ones. So when you go out in the world, make sure that you understand that people don't have what we have. And so I guess just a combination of all that. And I wanted to get an education. I wanted to coach football. I wanted to help kids. I think just a combination of all that just led me to the path of special education, because I knew those were the kids that needed probably the most support. Those were the families that needed our support. So it's kind of just a combination of not just one person in my life, but just a combination of all the teachers I had and my family growing up, just instilling in me that, we got to help out people when we can.
That is absolutely beautiful. I love that that was instilled in you so young, and you can really see the passion for helping others and for giving in your community. That's incredible. Now, you went from being a principal, no, from a teacher to a principal to a director in special education, right?
Yeah, so I was a special education teacher, and this is the story I tell people all the time is, I was a teacher of special education, and, and I always had these like, oh, these are really good ideas I want to do for my students. We'd be told no, right? Like, oh, we don't have the money for that. We can't do that. So then I'm like, well, I got tired of being told no, what things I really wanted to do. So then I started thinking about, well, how can I make a bigger impact on kids? So, I went and got my degree to be like in leadership. So then I became a department chair at a school and had more impact on more kids, not just 20 or 30 kids I would see every day, and started doing some things that I wanted to do around that campus. And then I became a principal/director of a behavior school in a nearby district and ran that for about 4.5 years. Loved it. Got to run this program, work with a bunch of principals, administrators. And then right after that, I was able to then go back to Agua Fria, which is where I spent most of my time teaching, when their director position opened. And I was able to get that job after about 4 years of being a principal/director of a behavior school. And it was all just, like I tell people, I just kept moving up and up. And then further I moved up in my career, I realized I had more impact on more kids because I was able to make those decisions that I always wanted to make as a teacher. But since now I'm as director, I really don't get told no because I'm the one making the decisions when it comes to the programs we have. So I tell people all the time is the reason why I wanted to do it, become a director, because I got tired of being told no, and I have some really good ideas for working with students with special education. And now I have a team around me that has I have this vision that I want to do, and my district goes for it because I'm able to really implement some programs that are really successful for kids. And so that's why I kind of moved up the ladder. Just, I wanted to do things that were good for kids, and now nobody can really tell me no.
That is a brilliant idea to say, oh, you know what? Okay, tell me no. I'll prove you otherwise. I love that mindset.
And I'm just keep going up the ladder. And then now it's like, well, they really can't tell me no because since I'm the one making decisions when it comes to special education.
I love that. Now, the workforce pathway that is in your district, did you create that? Did you enhance that? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, so our district was never now like in like a CTE pathway, right, where kids are choosing the career they wanted to go down. This is my 8th year as the director in special education in this district, and I knew that one of the areas that we were really struggling with was preparing our students with an intellectual disability for life after high school. Right, it's like we were doing a good job academically, we were doing some stuff with them that might prepare them for a job, but these students were either getting a job, we call it like food or filth, right? They're getting jobs at fast food restaurants or working or cleaning like cafeterias, but that's all they were really being prepared for. So we knew we had to fix something, right? Because I'm like, well, there's got to be more out there. Then when we got our new superintendent, Mr. Eastless, Mark Eastless, and he flat asked me, he's just like, hey, are we able to hire any of our kids within our district, or are we just expecting the community to hire our students? And at the time, I was like, well, right now we are expecting the community to hire our students. And then he just flat out asked me, well, if we're not going to hire them, then why would we expect our community partners to hire them? And that kind of jump started this whole process of like, well, we're going to this pathway, this job pathway, this career pathway. So we need to start a pathway for our students in special education, especially for those that we know aren't going to go to college, and which is, your students with like intellectual disability. And so now we sat down and started creating a plan about 3 years ago. 3 years now, we actually have this pathway. We've been really successful, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger because we just keep going bigger. Like we just keep pushing it. And even next year, we're going to go even bigger than I ever thought we would.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh, how incredibly inspiring also. And I never heard the combination food or filth, but that really puts quite the picture in your mind. And I love it's especially where the thought process is, it's not talk the talk, it's walk the walk, talk the talk. Like that's powerful for people to see in the community. Really powerful. So it starts from early skill building and you get them ready for real employment opportunities. What does that pathway look like?
Yeah, so again, and we'll go back to how it started. Like we reached out, we researched, we saw programs all across to the valley, reached out to districts across the country, and what we noticed was a lot of districts do have these type of programs, but they wait till their senior year, right? After the academics are done, then they get like a year of on-the-job training, on-the-job skill building. But when we reached out to Dr. Sieberstein from UMass, who did this awesome study in the past, I think about 10, 15 years ago about students with intellectual disabilities. One thing that stuck out in his study was students with intellectual disabilities have to have years of basically on the job training, and it can't just be for 1 year or they're not going to be successful. And I think he gave a stat about from students with intellectual disabilities, about 8% of success rate going into a job based off maybe 1 year of on the job training to jumping up to about 18, 19, 20% once they have, 3 or 4 years of this type of training. So we knew that for this to be successful, we have to start when they were freshmen. So right away, we're like, well, we're not going to wait till they're seniors. We're not going to wait to see if they come back for a fifth year if they have to. And so from the very beginning, we said, all right, when they come in as freshmen, we're going to start a classroom business, which a lot of our programs now, every campus has a classroom business that is run by their intellectual disability students. And from there, we just like, all right, from the freshman level on, we're going to find out what they're good at, what their interests are, and we're going to, create their schedules based around their skills, their activities, and what they want to do once they leave us. And that's worked out really well. So that's where we decided, we got to get them right when we get them when they're 14 years old, and we have 4 years to get them ready for a job after high school. So that's probably the biggest difference between us and maybe any other district is, we just don't wait. We go from the very beginning, and they're in these, labs we have. They're working on job skills. They're running these classroom businesses because we got to figure out what their ability is, right? Like we don't really concentrate on, hey, this is their disability. We're like, all right, what's their ability? What are they good at? And let's start building on those skills so they can get a competitive employment once they leave us.
That is incredible. Oh my gosh. Especially because when you think about them coming in as freshmen, now you're really developing a deep rapport with them. It's not just like, oh, the freshman teachers have the fresh, or, like you only see them for a year. These teachers are moving with them throughout their entire high school career. That's wonderful. So I know it definitely takes a lot of teachers, a lot of coordination, a lot of community. What's been some of the biggest challenges that you've noticed as you're going through the entire process, especially with now 3 or 4 years in?
Funding obviously is always a challenge, right, in education, but we have been able to really partner up with Vocational Rehabilitation VR in our state, and they have been on board since day one. So they have funded a lot of our like paid internships that we could talk about here in a little bit. But so funding was always, of course, that's always the big barrier that we got to work around. But other than that, I think it's just been one, probably getting the parents on board a little bit, like, hey, your students are able to do a bunch of, these skills that maybe they didn't know. Like we hear all the time from parents, like, I didn't know my kid could even talk to a stranger. And now he's at a church selling coffee, or I didn't know my kid could get a job. And now it's like we had a kid last year who graduated. We offered him a mechanic job or transportation. He declined it and went to work for a car shop in the community, right? And his parents like, I never knew my son would ever get a job ever. So I think it's not a barrier, but that's something that we had to like really educate these parents on. Inside the school, I'm not gonna say it's a barrier, but we had to educate our teachers, our directors of like a transportation and our kitchen staff and our bookstore manager and maid and staff, like, hey, these are the type of students that we really want to shadow you over the next, while you're working, because we have students who are interested in this type of field. So it's just sitting down with them, educating them. So it's not really a barrier, but it's like we had to do a lot of education to a lot of people who probably have never been exposed or had to work with students with intellectual disabilities.
Wow, that's wonderful. Especially because if you think about educating somebody, you really can see that ripple effect because once you share with somebody else and then they get it, then they often pass it along to somebody else. So that must be really exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like we get reports all the time that our maintenance directors and our bookstore managers, they absolutely love our students inside their are shadowing or working with them because one, they say they're probably the most loyal kids that they have working for them or staff members working for them, and they're always paying attention. They want to learn. So it's like you get these kids in there that they just want to succeed and they like what they're doing and they end up being really loyal. So they absolutely love having our kids. I mean, they're always asking us, hey, do you have any more for me? Like, do you have anyone coming up that could help us out in this area? So it's really cool and great thing for a district.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Is there a specific student story that really stands out? I love the little ones that you've already mentioned. I didn't know if there was one that you can dive a little bit more into.
Yeah, we had one. I guess the most recent one was yesterday because we actually met with a former parent of ours talking about this, and she also brought up the food and filth because I think she said that's what parents are told from when their kids are young. That's all they're going to be able to do. So she was happy to hear that we're kind of moving away from that. I guess that mindset. But we have a student, intellectual disability, and we're trying to figure out what his skills were. But we realized that he's really good. He's very calm. He loves talking to kids, and he liked to go into. We have like a severe autism classroom, and he liked to go in there and hang out with the teacher and talk to her. And he would just sit there and kind of like try to work with the kids. So we understood like, wait a minute, this he really likes working with kids. We got to know him and through our process and figure out what he's good at. But he told us that he really wanted just to be a bus aide. Because we have bus aides on all our transportation for students. So we started working with them. Say, all right, well, if you want to be a bus aide, this is the skill that you have to get hired on in our transportation department. And so this year we talked to the teacher of autism, and she was all for him coming in. And so all year long, he's been interning inside our classroom for about 2 to 3 hours a day, working with students with autism. And him himself is a student in our school, did very well. And we just worked with them, did some interview questions with them. And, he would ride on buses, kind of just shadow the bus aides. And last week he went for an interview with our transportation department, and they absolutely love him because they talk to him all the time. I found out yesterday he calls the transportation department every morning. I didn't know this. And he just tells everybody, hey, it's a blah, 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 and just want to wish everybody a good day. And I'm praying for everybody. And then he would just hang up. So they absolutely love him, and they actually hired him on. And next year he's going to be a bus aide in our district for 3.5 hours a day.
That's so cool.
So that's one, like when he said he wanted to be a bus aide, we tried the internship within our program, but it goes back to the teacher allowing him to come in, and she's working with them on how to work with students with autism. And now next year he'll be on a bus with them riding to and from school.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. And I love that even though you're like, oh, here's one from yesterday. You must have a phenomenal collection of stories like that. How wonderful. What is something that you've learned through this work of getting them placed into the work, or I don't want to say the workforce, but into the community, getting them working in the community? How do you think differently in preparing your students for this life?
So over the last couple of years, I think the one thing we have learned is I think once you educate people, I think once you get in front of them and talk to them, and this is community partners, teachers, directors, parents, top level administrators in our district. I think once they realize like, hey, these students are able to do more than we ever thought they would, they're very capable of gaining competitive employment. And I think that's been the best thing is like, I think people just need to be educated. I think that people just need to understand like, hey, just because they have a disability doesn't mean they can't work for you. They can't be a successful employee for you. Like I said, like we've hired a couple on already in our district that have graduated, and I guarantee they're going to be there for the rest of their working career because they're very loyal. They want to do a good job, and they just love being around what they want to do. And so I think that's the biggest thing I learned is, people will, once they learn how to work with these type of students, where they're coming from, how to work with their abilities, that they welcome them in, and it just turns into a great thing for these people that hire them on. So I think that's the biggest thing I learned is, just educating people is probably the most important thing that we have to do as a special education staff. And once they do that, I think it's unlimited of what these kids could do.
That is incredible. Do you go to conferences at all and share what your district is doing?
Yeah, we spoke one yesterday, actually. So I have a great staff around me, my entire district office staff, and we have like job coaches that we have hired on, and they all do such a phenomenal job work with these kids that we do go out and we talk about what we're doing because it's all done basically in 4 years. And I think that's what people are kind of surprised by, right? And, we still, like I was talking to the mom yesterday, yes, the academics are really important, the math, the English, the science, history, we have to do all that still, right? Because it's education. But like the mom told me yesterday, like she knew her daughter wasn't going to go to college. So she wished, when her daughter was, and we started this right when her daughter was graduating. So then we're just kind of letting her know like, man, it's almost like 4 years too late. But we do all that. But then, but half the day have got to be spent on these job skills because that's what they're going to do when they leave high school. But yeah, so when we go around and we speak at conferences and we give presentations, I think that's the biggest question is like, well, how do we do this in 4 years? Or how do we convince our district this is what we have to do? Like, how do we convince our district, like, this is how you set up your classes? Because our classes are set up differently than most schools. Like, they'll do some English and math and science history, but then it's 50% academic, 50% job skill training, and they're out of the class, working there with their hands. And I think that's what the biggest question to us is, well, how do you set it up and how do you get this done? Because you can do it within that 4 years of that when the kids are with you.
That is incredible. What would you like to see change in the next 5 years? What would you have hoped to have changed for your students and their families that you serve?
Good question. I guess just more opportunities, one in our community, right? Like, we're doing everything. Like we've made some connections so far with like our city of Goodyear, city have done a great job. Like this year we had kids working at the rec center, and then we're actually working at the spring training ballpark that the Indians or not the Indians, the Guardians and the Reds play. So they did some internships over there, so they were able to do that. And that was our first big community partner. So now in the next 5 years, we hope to change where we get more community partners coming in and work with our kids. For our families and our district to change is probably just keep that mindset of, yes, my child or my student has a disability. Yes, they've been on an IEP for their entire high school or elementary, I guess, career, if you want to call it. And when you're on an IEP, right, you're constantly told what their kid can't do, right? Like, well, they can't read at this level, they can't write at this level, they can't, they might have a speech impediment, whatever it is, they might have some physical impairments, but they're constantly told what they can't do. And then they get so much support in supporting that like it doesn't really allow them to grow as much as we probably want them until they get to high school. And then now when they get to high school, instead of concentrating on what they can't do, or they can't read, they can't write, it's like the mindset is like, no, your child, yes, they can't read and write very well, but man, they could talk to these people and they're really good at organizing clothes. They're really good at with their hands. They're really good. They could be a mechanic. They could work with their hands. So I think it's the mindset of just, hey, yes, they have a disability, but man, they could do so much more. And you got to find out what that is. You got to talk to them. You got to work with them. You got to try different things. We've placed kids in positions that didn't work out. So we had to go find someone else. I once where a very lovely student, and she's a gabber and she talks and she loves talking to people, and she didn't work out in the kitchen because she wouldn't want to talk to every single customer for 5 minutes and know everything about their life. So we had to move her to the bookstore where she could have those conversations for 5 minutes with people, because it's not a 30-minute rush lunch. I guess the change, just keep moving forward, don't go backwards. Understand like these kids have a lot of abilities, and we just got to find out what they are. And then once we find it, they'll just explode and they'll grow, and it's just amazing to see.
I love that. I can only imagine the confidence that you see grow in them over the 4 years that they're in your high school.
Yeah, and they get paid, like you just see every 2 weeks they get their paycheck, no matter, they get paid if they're working, let's say 1 hour a week or 1 hour a day for 5 days a week, but they love their paychecks, they love it, they smile, and they love going home telling their parents, I got this paycheck. So it's awesome when you see that and they see the success that they're having.
That's amazing. Patrick, you and your team are doing phenomenal things. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today and to share all that you guys are doing over there. It is phenomenal.
Yeah, it was fun. I like, yeah, this is good. And the more we get out about letting people know that, yeah, special education is just on what's on a paper, and these kids have great ability. We just got to find, the more we like talking about it. So we love talking to people about what we're doing.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you so much to you. Thank you to our listeners. And until next time, stay well. If you'd like to contact Patrick at all his information will be in the show notes, and we will go from there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.